Well, hello. Welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast, where we talk with writers from all mediums and genres about themselves, their work, and advice they have for writers. I'm your host, Paul Zeidman, and my guest today is author Erin Baldwin. We'll be talking to her about herself and her new book, Good Luck, Babe. Erin, welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I think we're about to be joined by another special guest, my cat.
I will tell you, you are not the first guest. And for those watching on YouTube, yes, the cat just entered the picture. Now he's looking, she looking into the
He,
camera.
yes, he's very nosy. He sensed that I was giving attention to someone who wasn't him. So he had to
Oh,
come over
okay.
and find out.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we'll try to keep the questions focused on you. And if the cat feels the need to interject, so be it.
Perfect.
Erin, yes, it is a pleasure to have you and your cat both on the podcast today. For those who are familiar, we'd like to start things off talking about things we may have read or watched lately. Do we like them? Do we hate them? Are we indifferent? Don't want to have anything to do with them ever again? I will go first just to give Erin some time to collect her thoughts. So, a couple of things I've been watching. I had to spread it out over about 3 days because it's a really long movie. It is Avatar, Fire and Ash. And I didn't see it in the theaters because I had no desire to, so I knew I was going to watch it on streaming, and that's what I did. And the visual effects are phenomenal. They are top notch. It's great. The only problem is for me, the story is exactly the same as the second one, and I think there were a lot of subplots that just were left hanging. And I think, James Cameron is a fantastic filmmaker. I'll give him that. He's great with special effects, but he's a terrible writer. Uh, it just there were so many loose ends that I felt they were left loose, and some of them just kind of like, oh, here's a subplot we're going to throw in just because it's convenient for the story, and it just didn't work for me. But I don't ever need to see it again. Also, the fact that it's about what 1,800 hours long. So there was that. I also had the pleasure of going to Comic-Con a week and a half ago in San Diego. First time, had a great time, and closed it out the perfect way. A screening of Big Trouble in Little China, which is one of my absolute favorite movies. I can't go wrong with Kurt Russell and James Hong is David Lopan. Just great stuff all around. And after I came home, started watching the new season of Batman Caped Crusader, which I believe is on Amazon. So it's like Batman set in an actual 40s setting, and he's got the old costume and everything. New take on all the villains and the characters. This season not as great as the first one. About halfway through, still enjoying it, but I think they did a much better job the first time around. But still looking forward to seeing the second half because they've been teasing the Joker, and I read it somewhere. Someone described it as if the Joker were played by Werner Herzog. Which how can you go wrong with that? But they haven't shown him in full frame yet. Just a lot of partial shots of his face and shadow, et cetera, et cetera. But again, looking forward to that. So that is it for me. Erin, what about you? Anything good or not so good on the reading and or watching front?
So when I am writing, which I'm currently doing, I'm drafting for a new book, but I find it difficult to read because one, I feel I have less time, and two, I feel like I am both analyzing too much, and if it's good, then I'm frustrated that it's better than what I'm writing, and
Mm.
if it's bad, I'm like, I can't even get through this, you know?
Sure.
So I'm setting myself up for failure if I try to read while I'm writing. So lately, when I'm in this mode, I will rewatch the same TV show over and over and over again. Because I have ADHD and it helps to kind of put on a noise, but a noise that I can ignore because I'm so familiar with.
Mhm.
So I'm watching Bob's Burgers for about the 300th time.
Wow. So is it the entire like the entire series or just like one episode in particular?
No, the entire series.
Oh,
I've
okay.
seen every episode no less than 15 times.
Oh my goodness.
So that's a nice, just like little background noise for me, and I always enjoy it. It's funny every time. But I also, when I'm writing, find myself watching a lot of YouTube deep dives about things. And for various reasons, uh, the deep dives lately have been about ambition and power and Whiplash, Black Swan, and Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly. So we've been watching a lot of deep dives on those topics.
I was gonna say
Um,
that is a very diverse selection.
yes, but it's just that's my entire YouTube history for the past like 3 weeks has just been those topics. I've watched so many videos on Whiplash. I never want to hear about that movie again.
Wow.
Yes. So 10 out of 10 for all of those.
Okay,
Very
well,
good.
that is great stuff. Okay, so let us talk about Erin Baldwin, the writer, and here is the about the author page in the back of Good Luck, Babe. Erin Baldwin is a Filipino-American author who writes vivid, diverse stories that will leave you in happy tears. She lives in New Jersey with her partner and their two wonderful cats. We just saw one of them, who've transcended the need for names. Her debut, Wish You Weren't Here, was released in 2024. Good Luck, Babe is her sophomore novel. So, Erin, let's talk a little about you. I guess we could almost call it your origin story. So, how did you get your start? Were you always a writer? I like to ask guests, were you a voracious reader as a child, or is writing something you came to a little bit later in life? You were always like, I'm not going to try writing, and you said, inspiration hit. You said, I've got to write this down. Hey, I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to keep doing it until until I can't do it no more.
They kind of, it's so funny because I feel like when I was a kid, I guess people I met who, I mean, I was a kid, so I knew kids, right? But people I met who were writers and readers had always loved it. And now I'm meeting so many people who just started writing within the past 5 years, I think
Hmm.
because of the pandemic. Like so many
Okay.
people who are like, oh, I just picked it up as an adult, which is really interesting. But I have always been, not like to be like, but I have always been a writer. But it's always been part of my life. I think I wrote my first short story. It was an Alice in Wonderland retelling with assassins, as anything is when you're 7 years old.
As a
Um,
7-year-old is wont to do.
that's the two topics, that you have in your brain, assassins and Alice in Wonderland.
Sure.
Main character was the Ace of Hearts, of course,
Ah.
as an assassin. And I've just been writing since then. I was a big reader since I learned to like reading, which was probably like first grade.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't even know, I didn't even consciously think about writing as like like I wasn't like, let me try writing. I don't remember a time when I was reading and not writing. You know what I mean? They kind of just developed simultaneously. I'm not that old. I was born in 94, but old enough to have written my first few stories on like a manual typewriter.
Hmm.
Because my family didn't have a computer yet. So I've been doing it for a little bit. Fell off for a bit in college when I got busy, and then found it again afterward. And that's when I started querying and taking it more seriously. And yeah, that's where we are today.
That brings us a great question. Like, what was it that kind of like brought you back into it? You said you took a break from it, and all of a sudden you picked it up again. Was there like just all of a sudden you're walking down the street, said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a story. I want to write this down," or was it something else?
It was I think I don't know what caused this in my brain, but ever since I've been writing and like loved writing, I've always kind of felt guilty when I wasn't doing it.
Hmm.
Do you have that?
I think every writer has
Like
that.
yes, but I'd be like in school, like oh my, especially in November when NaNoWriMo was still happening, and
Hmm.
I'd like be in school like oh my God, I need to be writing right now. Like why why do I have to be in this class? I need to be writing. My time to write words is wasting away. And I was kind of like overwhelmed with this like guilt at all times when I was in high school. And obviously, you have more things to do in life and you have friends and you have more freedom. So in high school and college, I was working, I had, a life, and like writing was the thing that I could take off the plate, right? But still felt guilty about it the whole time, still like thought about writing a lot. I studied nursing in school, but I still took creative writing classes because it was something that I loved, but I wasn't like writing novels.
Hmm.
Um, and then as I started to graduate college, I think I felt that like in the spring of my final year of school was when I started writing again. I think because I felt that weight of like all of my time being spent on something like lift off my shoulders. And that's when I started really seriously writing the first book that I queried, which was not Wish You Weren't Here. It was a book before that that didn't make it anywhere. But that's when I picked it back up again.
Okay, all right. So that's a great segue. So that led into you had your first book, and that led to Wish You Weren't Here. But now that takes us to Good Luck, Babe, which is your new book, which is just out. What I like to ask the guest is that for screenwriting, it's the elevator pitch. Here's the log line of the script. It's 5 second pitch. You're in an elevator with a big Hollywood exec. Here's what my script is. 5 seconds. For authors, it's a little bit different. You're more likely to have the cocktail party pitch. You're
Mhm.
you're milling about, being social, and you run into someone who says, "Oh, Erin, oh, it's great to see you. I heard about this new book of yours. Good luck, babe. Tell me, what's it about?"
Good Luck Babe is a sapphic YA rom-com. It is about two girls who are reality TV show enthusiasts and best friends who had a falling out and are brought back together by a unfortunate casting on an all couple season of essentially The Amazing Race.
Right.
So they haven't spoken in a year and now they're back together pretending to be a couple to win $2 million.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that the concept for the story to me has felt very timely, very of today. So the big question is, what was the inspiration for this story? I mean, are you a big reality TV fan, or you just thought, I want to take these two characters, but I want to put them in a situation that is new and exciting, but also familiar. So, I mean, what was the how did Good Luck, Babe come together?
Kind of all of that. I am a big reality TV fan, but more Survivor than The Amazing Race. But Survivor isn't as fun to read about because they're just on an island starving and like the idea of like falling in love with someone under duress feels like
Hmm.
kind of wrong, you know? So I wanted something a little more fun, and I always am kind of thinking about tropes that don't work for me, especially because romance, I don't know what percentage of your viewership is romance readers, but it's a very tropey um genre kind of on purpose. Like
Hmm.
readers like it. It's a fun like thing to engage in, and fake dating has never really worked for me as a storyline because like why? Or like why do you need to like bring somebody and date them to your like brother's wedding? You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it never feels strong enough, the premise. But I was thinking, what would be a reasonable reason to have to fake date somebody who you never want to speak to again in your life, who you had
Hmm.
this like falling out with? And like honestly, it is $2 million to go on a show that I love, right? I would go on Survivor with my ex-boyfriend if they were going to give me $2 million. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, okay, I think that's reasonable. I think people could understand why that would happen. And that was like the segue into it, you know? I was like,
Hmm.
what kind of tropes can I play with but make them reasonable?
Okay, no, I totally get that. Yeah, I just thought it was a very unique approach to a story that, again, familiar but different.
Mhm.
So that was really nice to see. One of the things I was really interested in is that the story is told in the first person from the point of view of Noelle, who's our protagonist. So
Mhm.
why that approach as opposed to like third person, like Noelle goes up to Yumi, or is Yumi or Young? I was
Yumi.
okay. So
Yumi.
no,
Mhm.
Yumi is the other main character. No, why that approach as opposed to third person? And had you considered, since a lot of it is from Noelle's point of view, like going back and forth, especially because it's their story. Like here's chapter one, Noelle's point of view, chapter two, Yumi's point of view, like the same scenario or like something that happens right after that. You get the idea of what I'm saying.
Yes, yes. So it's interesting because I feel like um, first person is kind of a default for me because my writing is a little more voicey, and that makes sense more coming from a person's brain than coming from a narrator, like a third person neutral narrator, you know?
Hmm.
And like when I'm in first person, I can be a little weirder with my phrasing and my metaphors and the things that I do, and the characters can be a little more self-aware. Then I can really be in third person without being like super omniscient, and like being able to see into everyone's brain and see exactly what they're thinking. So I've always kind of preferred like a very close in the head perspective. I think it's where my writing works the best because my characters can just like think, instead of me
Sure.
having to tell you what they're thinking. Skip the middleman.
Hmm.
But I did initially have it written as a dual perspective, Noelle and Yumi, and kind of back and forth. Um, but unfortunately, which I liked, and I think a lot of people wish that I had kept, but because it's very common in romance, but it was just too many moving parts in the story. It was you were flipping perspectives, you were going to 10 different countries, you were traveling, you were doing all of these challenges. There are like 20 characters. Like it was just too many things were moving. And it made the story feel kind of unwieldy, especially because in young adult and in contemporary romance, the word count limits are much smaller than in like adult fantasy, which can be much bigger books. So because I didn't have a lot of space, I had to cut some gear out of the mechanism, and that ended up being Yumi's POV.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say because, especially because a lot of the scenarios and developments that happen between the two of them, that we definitely get the insight from Noelle, like for how she feels about it, and it's almost like we're compelled to know, like, well, but how does Yubi feel about it? And she's just keeping quiet. What's going on in her head, and unfortunately, as you said, you weren't able to kind of dip into that. I just wonder if that would have maybe changed the whole presentation of the story, but also, as you said, may have made it more complicated. And so the reader would have been like, okay, now I'm getting too wrapped up in this other character, and now we're getting off track from the main storyline.
Yes, exactly. And it does suck because there were some things like one of the things I ended up having to cut. I'm Filipino and Yumi is Filipino. And there was a challenge where they go to the Philippines,
Hmm.
and that was from Yumi's perspective. Um, and I wish I could have kept it because those chapters meant a lot to me. I put a lot of research into writing them, but the problem was that they were told from Yumi's perspective, and so they were a lot about like kind of going. So in the Philippines, there are these buses that are like converted Jeeps. They were like used during World War II when the Philippines was occupied by the US. And then after the US like pulled all their forces out, they left these like Jeeps behind. And so they've turned these Jeeps into jeepneys, which are like public transportation, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes people will ride on top of them or on the outside of them. It's not very regulated, not super safe. They're just like standing on top of the bus.
Hmm.
And Yumi in her one of her chapters in the Philippines is talking about how she was never allowed to do that as a kid because her parents were like, "You're going to die. We don't want you to die and get run over by a bus." But now she's back in the Philippines with Noelle, and there's no like she's an adult now, and her parents aren't there to tell her what to do, and so they ride on top of the jeepney, and she is talking about experiencing this like kind of motherland, but returning to it with different eyes and like
Hmm.
having different experiences and feeling differently about it. And like that's not something that you can convert to a point of view that isn't Yumi's. So when I had to cut Yumi's perspective, I had to cut those chapters because they just wouldn't have worked from Noelle's perspective. So it was really that was the thing I was the saddest to lose with Yumi's perspective.
I was gonna say, "Kill Your Darlings" is
I know.
definitely coming into play here. But the great
Yes.
thing is that uh, uh, we'll get into the follow-up stories afterward. So okay, as we've established that a majority of the story it takes place during and behind the scenes of a reality show. The big question I was thinking, I mean, I'm not a big reality show person, but how much research was involved to make sure that it all felt realistic? Because you have the producer who's there all the time, and the host, who almost two separate personalities, and you have the camera crew that's working with these two girls. That I mean, is this based partially on your knowledge of and appreciation of reality shows, or did you have to kind of, as you said, do a little deep diving into, finding out like, okay, what goes on to put on a show like this?
Yeah, it did take a lot of research. I would say probably about 20 years of watching Surviving.
Wow.
Yes. I ha when I get into something, I really get into it. It's the ADHD and I had a period in college when I wasn't writing, when I was listening to a lot of Survivor podcasts.
Hmm.
And so I knew how things work behind the scenes, not just logistically, but like psychologically, like what people who are behind the scenes are thinking and how they are they're not allowed to interact with production, but they're kind of using production to like gauge, like if you're doing an interview with somebody and the producer is acting really interested and you're talking about possibly voting somebody out on Survivor, say,
Hmm.
right? Survivor is a show where you vote people out. So the producer knows what's happening with everybody because they're behind the scenes. And then sometimes you can watch their reaction and think, are they really interested because that person has an idol, which would nullify votes and then whatever, right? So like you're not technically interacting with them, but how you can read their interactions with you in this like metagame way. And I always thought that was really interesting because I wanted to go on Survivor and win $1 million. And so I was like, let me gather all the information that I can get so I can get on Survivor. So it didn't take a lot of specific research of like just watching it or learning about it for this, but it did take years of collecting all that knowledge and hoarding it. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things I thought was really interesting is that, especially because it's we get to go into Noelle's head throughout the course of the story. So while the producer is talking to the two of them, to Noelle and Yumi, that it's almost like she has to. I don't know what to call it, mask the truth, like how she really feels, because that would make for bad television or it'd make them look bad as, you know, because it's also that being on the show is affecting her thought process and and
Mhm.
her reactions to things. I just thought that was a really interesting character trait because it's not something I would have ever thought of. You just think, okay, they have to be themselves and the camera picks it up. There's a lot. I don't know if manipulation is the word, or it's a lot. It's tailoring it to the audience that they're targeting. I just that was a really unique approach, and was that I guess because of your familiarity with the reality TV and Survivor, was it easier or more difficult for you to apply that uh, practice into the story?
I think it was easier for me because I had thought of myself as somebody who would go on Survivor, right? So I would watch Survivor and see the way that they would show an interview with somebody, like a
Hmm.
confessional. And I would be watching it and I would think to myself, okay, but what question did they ask this person to get them to give this answer, right? Because they're not just saying things. They're like asking them, oh, so what do you think about Paul? Do you think he's smart? And then so they show me saying, oh yeah, I think Paul is really smart, as if I am saying that you are a threat, right?
Hmm.
Like they take the little bits and they Frankenstein them together. They call them Franken bites, like sound bites.
Right.
And uh as I think a lot of a lot of people in romance, especially write reality TV shows, but they do like The Bachelor or things like that. And I think the thing that I was always kind of missing as a reality TV fan, even if they did show a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, is the awareness that you have to have when you go on a reality TV show that you are on a TV show, right? People aren't
Hmm.
applying for The Bachelor because they think they're going to find their true love. People are applying for The Bachelor so that they can become Instagram famous and never
Hmm.
have to work again, you know? But like you have to pretend that that's not why you're there. And everybody around you has to pretend that they don't know that's why you're there. And it's this level, there's this idea in professional wrestling of kayfabe. Do you know this term?
I'm not sure.
It's spelled Kayfabe, kayfabe. It is the idea that the audience is in on this. The audience knows that wrestling is fake. The wrestlers know that wrestling is fake. The audience is purposefully participating in pretending that wrestling is
Hmm.
real, right? They're pretending that they think that it's real because it's all part of the performance. And reality TV also has this kayfabe of like, you, the people who are watching are pretending that they think that the people on The Bachelor are going to be in love forever. But you don't really think that, you know?
Hmm.
Like nobody thinks that, but there's like this suspension of disbelief that we all agree to when we watch reality TV, as if there's not like as if these people don't exist outside the show and they're not going to be harassed on social media if they say something mean about Taylor Swift or whatever,
Mm,
right?
sure.
Um, and because I wanted to be on reality TV, I always thought about it that way. Like, what would I have to be careful about talking about, right? And it just made sense to me that Noelle would think about it that way as a super fan herself.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. One of the things I also wanted to talk about was so the heart of the story of Good Luck Babe is the friendship between Noelle and Yumi, primarily about them rebuilding the relationship after a significant event. So was it your initial intent to present a story about two girls, as opposed to like a girl and a boy?
Mhm. Yes and no. Originally, I had thought about doing it like a straight relationship. Um, because there is something really interesting when you're a teenager. Like, I don't know if I'm sure everybody did, right? But like when you're in high school and you're thinking about like an overnight field trip, right? And you're like, oh, I might sit on the bus next to somebody I have a crush on. And just like being in physical proximity to like a man when you like 12, like, or I guess a boy when you are 12, like you're just like, there's something very like electric about it. And I thought that that could be fun. But my first book, Wish You Weren't Here, is also a sapphic relationship to two high school girls, and I felt a sort of loyalty to the people who came for that book and showed up for that book, and for the kids who don't get these kinds of stories. I feel things are changing now, but I think a lot of Hollywood and like big publishers and media really care about queer stories insofar as they are issues stories. You have to be dealing with the issue of being queer and coming out, and it has to be a big deal, and
Mm,
that's what the story is about, right? And I wanted to kind of keep bringing these stories that are something else, and just incidentally the characters are
mm.
also queer because I think that's how people live their lives, you know?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what I was
yeah.
that's what I was thinking is that it's not really about the fact that they're both girls, it's just that they're two friends who are really like each other and all of the the conflict that arises from that
Yes.
and the fact that you throw it into the middle of it, they're having they're rebuilding the relationship on television while they're trying to do it. It's just a wrinkle that you don't really expect, and also it's fascinating to see. And if you're really into reality TV, it's probably like, is this what it's really like all the time? I actually just wanted to ask, so was it challenging to keep the story, I guess, for the most part, PG-13, especially since both Noelle and Yumi dropped the F-bomb more than a few times, which actually caught me off guard because I'm not used to seeing that in a YA type of story.
You know what? I wasn't either. Like I in my first book was like not cursing at all. And then people were like, "Why aren't you cursing in this book?" Like so I was like, fine, the characters are just gonna talk then. Like, but it's a lot more common in YA, I think now, and it's starting to become more common. But there's also the truth of it is that with at least language, it was
Hmm.
harder to keep it PG language wise than it was to keep it PG romantically because the relationship never really felt the way that like a new adult romance or an adult romance relationship feels. Their
Hmm.
relationship felt to me much um both more developed and younger, you know, because it's so rooted in them being friends, not rooted in like a sexual attraction. So that
Hmm.
wasn't like an issue. But in publishing right now, there's a big push, of course, for inclusivity and for sensitivity in language. But it also limits a lot of things that you're allowed to say. So, for example, a word I had to take out of Wish You Weren't Here and Good Luck, Babe was stupid. I wasn't allowed to say stupid.
Wow.
And when you are thinking about a sentence like there's a specific sentence in Wish You Weren't Here I didn't look at the stupid board. I didn't need to, right? In that sentence, you can't replace stupid with a word that is a synonym for stupid, right? Because that's not how it's being used. It's being used as like
Hmm.
an amplifier in that sentence. And one of the only amplifiers that isn't also tied to like mental health or like intellectual disability is the F word, right? And like sometimes that was the only option that I had, and my characters were really upset and they had to say something. So, so I had to use it.
Okay, sure, sure. I was gonna say it was intriguing. I mean, like terms of the physical activity, like they hold hands and they kind of like, oh, I can feel your hair brushing against my shoulder and the occasional kiss, and that's about it. And I was trying to figure out, does you don't want to push things too far because you're not making this an adult story. It's almost kind of like a first love type of thing. So it's very innocent on a level. So you want to kind of keep it at that level. But I was intrigued just because the way they talk and the way they act are almost two different things.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I thought was probably maybe the strongest subplot of the entire story is Noelle and her father. And which plays a major factor as it's almost like the inciting incidents as to why they go on this reality show. Was that part of your original concept, or was it something you thought, okay, what would motivate them to want to go on this reality show? And we try not to do spoilers, but the money plays a big factor. We'll put it that way.
Yes, yes. And for anybody who does feel like they're being spoiled, this is revealed in like chapter 2, so you're okay. But yes, I think it came to me pretty quickly because I knew I needed a reason, right? Because I wanted this to be a reasonable fake dating situation. And even if you do love reality TV, and even if you were me and you love reality TV and you want $2 million, this is an easy yes, right?
Hmm.
But there are readers who don't love reality TV, and this might still be a no for them. And
Hmm.
for those people, I had to give them another reason that would make sense for somebody to want to do this with somebody that they had a kind of tumultuous history with. And I think it wasn't something I had to think about very long. It came to me quickly that this would have to be related to Noelle's dad or one of Noelle's parents. And she only has her dad because her mom died when she was young. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. That's great. It's a lot of times I'll notice that characters in a story, a lot of times, especially the primary characters and some of the supporting characters, are in some way an aspect of the writer's personality. So, would you say you're more Noelle, you're more Yumi, or you're a combination of both, or you're not like either of them?
I think that I am, some parts of me are Noelle. I think Yumi is much cooler than I am. Yumi is an aspirational version of me from a different land. And I think the character I'm most like actually though might be Morgan, who's one of the minor characters.
Hmm.
She's on a different team. She's the dancer
Hmm.
on one of the teams. And I think my personality is most similar to hers. But in terms of the way I think, um, obviously Noelle, because I wrote the words from my head. And so the words she's thinking are things that kind of came to me. What would I think or say in this situation? Um, and so a lot of her like thought patterns, the way she deals with her ADHD, the way she dissociates, those are very from my personality and from my experience.
Okay, I was going to say that because it's set on a reality show, so they're all the competitors, the contestants, that you do a good job of establishing the personalities of all the other contestants. We don't really get to know them that well, but they are their background, but they also still play an important role in the overall story. And there's a handful that I guess to me just left a really a lasting impression. Primarily the couple who are always arguing and fighting, just because I guess to me they're the funniest. because they're supposed to be working as a team and they're always arguing. And I think while you were putting, I guess, the roster of all the different teams, did you
Mhm.
have, okay, I want to have like this couple who's just madly in love and this couple who are like they're in it to win it, and there's this couple they just can't stand each other, but $2 million is at stake.
Yes, the good thing is that The Amazing Race has already done this work for me. They already know how to make the audience like they know the audience can't deal with 20 individual personalities and learn them all in one episode. So you have to call one like a team doctor or like married dentists,
Hmm.
like so that was like baked in to the premise, which is great. And because they've spent so long doing this, they've really perfected what makes a team kind of like what is the little nugget of thing that makes the watcher, the reader, like click, makes
Hmm.
it click in their head, right? So it was easy to just kind of steal that. And I knew I wanted the ball and chain couple, which is what the couple you're speaking of. I knew I wanted them because they're my least favorite. Noelle even says this in the book. These shows are supposed to be fun and like they have like wonder and like they're exciting. And it is so uncomfortable to watch two people who hate each other be around each other all the time. This is the things that they say to each other. People on The Amazing Race are like 10 times meaner.
Oh my.
Like it's sometimes it's crazy. Like people will like leave their wives behind and be like, I can't deal with you right now. Like so they're actually pretty tame, like for a hate each other couple on
Hmm.
reality TV.
No, no, that's great. So okay, so the book is out now because I have mine here. So what has been the feedback? I mean, I would imagine you've probably heard from a wide variety of the potential audience for this. I mean, have reality TV fans gotten back to you, or fans of YA, or fans of sapphic YA rom-com type stories? I mean, have you just gotten responses from all different areas?
Yes, yes, a lot of reality TV fans who enjoy the reality TV aspect because, like I was saying, a lot of contemporary books that do reality TV don't understand the the feeling of being a super fan.
Hmm.
So they'll like talk about it, but it's not quite right or whatever. So a lot of people were like, "Oh, as a, whatever fan for so long, like this was so great. It was fun to see this thing that like I recognize from real life or whatever. I've seen this challenge or whatever." So that's fun. The general feedback has been very positive. But I am, to be honest, struggling with there is I have a difficulty with my writing where I think I am sort of like what's that like disorder that kids have where they don't like want to listen to authority like like in school. I think that I have that with writing, where like I don't want to give the reader what they want. I know that you want me to give you a certain ending, and I feel resistant to doing that because it feels cliche.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, when you refuse to give the reader the ending that they want, and then they don't get the ending that they want, they're not happy about it. And so
So okay, so that begs the question: did you have readers respond saying, "How could you have them not win?" I mean, that's I know it's a spoiler, but that's what the book is building up towards. Are they going to win? And it would be a much different story if they had. But I mean, have you had people upset that this is how you had things work out for them?
yes, but that's not the thing. That's not the thing that I didn't give people that they wanted. You might also recognize this from your own experience reading. I don't know if this will be too much of a spoiler, so feel free to cut it, but or cut around it. Um, it's that you don't see the resolution at the end of Noel's dad getting the surgery. Like he does in the epilogue get the surgery
Hmm.
that he needs, and because they didn't win, they didn't have the money for it. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, of course he was always going to get it. There was never a he wasn't going to get it, right? Like this wasn't it wasn't dependent on them winning and getting the money. That would just have helped, right? He was
Right.
always going to get it. That's just how it works. He's just now in a tremendous amount of medical debt. And I didn't want to show him being in medical debt on the page. So I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna have them have this conversation. People will get that he got the surgery because he needed it. And people were really mad that I
Wow.
did not wrap up on page. That is like the consistent complaint that people have, which I get too, right? Because
Hmm.
it's the emotional crux of the story. It's the reason Noelle's doing what she's doing. And then you as a reader don't get to see it resolved, even if you can, figure it out. So it's interesting to see. And the same thing kind of happened in Wish You Weren't Here with the plot there, where a character didn't get a resolution and people were very upset with it. So I think this is a pattern in my writing.
Yeah, I was going to say I did realize that. I thought about it very briefly when I after that part. I thought, okay, so they didn't win, but the dad's okay. So, but my first thought was like, did they do a crowdfunding? Did like just people say, "Oh, yeah, my dad went through the same thing," and they like sent Noel money? I mean,
That's
I
what a
mean,
lot of commenters have said. They've been like, why didn't they just do a crowdfunding? And I'm like, well, I should have talked to you before I published the book because I would have put it in there if I thought of it.
okay, that that's great because I was thinking, I guess it worked out. It just,
Yes. Well, I was like, I don't want to have to. And the thing in Wish You Weren't Here is there's a counselor who's being really mean to the main character the whole time, and then at the end she's fired, right? Which is what should happen. And the reader is expecting you to see her be confronted on page, but she's fired off page by the owner of the camp. It's set at a summer camp, because that's how it would happen in real life. In real life, if I were running a summer camp, I wouldn't make a counselor who was being mean to a child talk to the child before they leave. I would just be
hmm,
like, go home, right? I'm not going to have them confront each other in
right.
person. But people were mad that they didn't get that resolution. And I think sometimes I think too much about characters as people and not as
Yeah.
characters, you know?
Like you're expecting like an almost a realistic or almost to
Yes.
fulfill like this is like that fairy tale that happily ever after kind of ending and they don't get there like "Oh, I wanted that."
Yes, yes. And I think I need to just kind of give in. I need to give them the emotional arc that I've promised them, you know? So I've gotten very good feedback, and people are like, I love this book until I didn't get this thing at the end. So
Well, I was
something to
going to
work
say
on.
just to counter that that a lot of times a reader will really enjoy it when they get the ending that they want but it's not the one they're expecting.
Hmm.
And so I
Yes.
th that always catches them off guard, but like that, and sometimes they'll think, I like this so much better because it's not, as you say, you don't want to fall into a cliche or trope of, that the happy ending, that the happy ending happens, but not definitely in a completely different way than from what the reader is expecting.
Yes, exactly. Not a happy ending, but an emotionally satisfying
Hmm.
ending.
Sure.
The ending that you would have gotten if they didn't win, but Noelle had crowdfunded all this money for her dad, right? Would have
Yeah.
bridged both gaps.
Well, I still think it's still a great book.
Thank you, thank you. No, it is
Uh,
good. Everybody should read it.
so the also and the question I did have that when the book ends, it's kind of like it opens the door for a probably the inevitable sequel. So I have to ask, are you working on a follow-up to this one, or is your latest project something totally removed?
Totally removed. It made sense to me to end that way because that's just how reality TV shows end, and I thought it would be
Okay.
fun, you know? Like it just feels, I don't know, it felt right for the story. Um, but uh there is no sequel in the works for this book. I would write one. I would happily write one if Penguin wanted me to, but
Ah,
that's a story for a different time.
I was going to say,
Uh,
Penguin said, "Here's $2 million for you."
exactly. They don't have to give me 2 million. They could give me two. I'd write it as long as they publish it.
Okay. That's
But yeah,
okay.
different story.
Okay, Erin Baldwin, this has been a joy. And again, your book is Good Luck, Babe. So where can people find out more about you, website and or social media where they can find out more about you and your books?
You can follow me on Instagram at erinbaldwin.books, and on TikTok, but I don't post on there as much, and at the same username. And you can find my website at erinbwrites.com.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Erin Baldwin. And again, her book is Good Luck Babe, and her website, erinbwrites.com, and for Instagram, erinbaldwin.books. Erin, thank you so much for being here today. This was a joy.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Oh, my pleasure. And viewers and listeners, I hope you had fun too and enjoyed today's show. Please hit like, feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. Our theme music for the audio version of the show is by Mark Gunyon. Social media, you can check out my screenwriting blog at maximumz.blog. This show is on Blue Sky and Instagram at podcast CWL. I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram, but that is at Pez Screenwriting. Yep, just like the candy. And my Go Ahead and Ask books, the three books on screenwriting and pie, those are all available on Amazon. Like I said, that is Erin. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.